I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Mike, and I've been married to Jessica for 7 years. On the surface, we had a picture-perfect life. A nice home in the suburbs, a stable job, and plans to start a family soon. But beneath that facade, things were starting to unravel, and I just didn't see it until it was too late. It began with little things. Jessica, once so affectionate and attentive, seemed distant. She would come home late from her shifts at the hospital, claiming she was swamped with patients. When I'd ask about her day, she would brush me off with vague responses. I noticed she was spending more time on her phone, often stepping out to take calls, only to return with her demeanor shifted, almost defensive. There were whispers of late-night texts, random bursts of laughter that felt out of place, and a general air of secrecy that hung between us like a stubborn fog. Then there were the two phones. I didn't think much of it at first. Jessica insisted one was for work, a necessity given her job in emergency medicine, but it struck me as odd when she became protective of them, often keeping them in her purse or face down on the table. It was a gut feeling that something wasn't right, but I wasn't ready to accuse her without solid proof. After all, we'd built a life together. I didn't want to let my imagination run wild. But then one night, everything changed. I was tidying up the living room when I stumbled upon the second phone, partially hidden beneath the couch cushions. My heart raced. I picked it up, hesitating for a moment before pressing the power button. The screen lit up, revealing a plethora of texts and calls from a contact named Babe. It was a moment that shattered everything. A wave of dread washed over me as I scrolled through the messages. They were explicit, filled with flirtatious banter and plans to meet up. I felt sick, like I was going to throw up. I couldn't believe what I was reading. The reality of my wife's betrayal hit me hard. I spent the next few hours in a haze, my emotions swirling between anger, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of disbelief. I confronted her that night when she came home, unable to contain my rage. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, holding the phone out like evidence in a courtroom. I could see the shift in her eyes, the panic rising in her throat as she tried to concoct a story on the fly. "Mike, let me explain," she blurted out, her voice rising in pitch. "It's not what you think, that's just for work. We have to talk about this." "Talk about what, Jess? You meant to tell me about your work buddy and the late-night rendezvous. Spare me the lies." My voice boomed through the house, and I felt a mix of empowerment and despair. I wanted to hear the truth, but part of me feared what she would say. Jessica's explanations were a twisted mess of excuses. She claimed the texts were harmless, that her colleague had been flirting, but that she had done nothing wrong. The more she spoke, the more I realized the depth of her deception. I could see it in her eyes. She was scared and desperate to hold onto her lies. It became clear that she had been living a double life, and I was the last to know. As I stood there watching my wife squirm under the weight of her own deceit, I felt a part of me die. My heart was shattered, and the love I had for her felt tainted. I was angry, hurt, but also deeply saddened. I had trusted her, and she had betrayed that trust in the worst way possible. The emotional toll was immense. It was like a storm raging inside me, a chaotic mix of feelings that I couldn't quite articulate. I needed to think and figure out what to do next. I had never imagined that I would find myself in this situation, and now I was left alone to sift through the wreckage of our marriage. How had we come to this? I wanted to scream, to shake her and make her understand the gravity of her actions, but instead I felt frozen, stuck in a moment that felt surreal, almost like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But I knew I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I needed a plan. It was time to take action, and I'd be damned if I let this go unanswered. I decided to consult with a lawyer, and to get to the bottom of this mess, I'd need a private investigator too. My heart was heavy, but I was ready to find the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The next few days felt like an emotional roller coaster. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that wrapped around my heart like a vice. Jessica continued to play the victim, insisting I was misunderstanding everything. "You're overreacting, Mike. You know how these things can get blown out of proportion," she would say with a shaky laugh, as if everything was normal. But there was nothing normal about our life anymore. I spent hours contemplating my next steps. I didn't want to jump into rash decisions, but I couldn't simply ignore the evidence. I met with a lawyer named Sarah, who was surprisingly empathetic, hearing my story with a level of understanding that made me feel like I wasn't alone anymore. She laid everything out for me, the options I had, the rights I held, and what a potential divorce could entail. It was sobering, to say the least. I also hired a private investigator, a no-nonsense guy named Tom. He specialized in infidelity cases, and his reputation was solid. I explained my situation to him, showing him the texts I had found on Jessica's second phone. Tom nodded, scribbling notes as I spoke, and then he promised to dig deeper into her life, find out if she was really seeing someone else, and who this babe was. In the meantime, I felt like I was living a double life myself. I'd come home to Jessica, pretending like everything was fine while my heart was aching and my mind was racing. I'd nod along to her stories about her day, feigning interest, but all I could think about was the impending storm. Her voice was a hollow echo, a reminder of everything I once cherished but was now tainted with lies. One evening, after another long day of pretending, I came home to find Jessica sitting on the couch, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed. "Mike, I've been thinking about us," she began, biting her lip. I felt a flicker of hope that she might finally confess, but it quickly faded when she continued. "I think we need to communicate better. I'm sorry I've been distant, but I've been stressed with work." I wanted to scream, to throw her words back in her face, but instead I took a deep breath and kept my composure. "Jessica, we need to talk about your other phone," I said, my voice low but firm. "We need to talk about the messages I found." For a moment her facade crumbled. I could see the panic flash across her face, the fear that I was onto something deeper than she wanted to confront. "I told you it's nothing. It's just work-related," she stammered, shaking her head as if denying my discovery would make it disappear. "You really think I'm that stupid?" I shot back, the anger bubbling to the surface. "I have proof right here. You're lying to my face, Jess." She looked cornered, her defenses crumbling as she took a step back. "It was just harmless fun. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand," she pleaded, but I was done with her excuses. The words felt like knives cutting deeper into my already wounded heart. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The weight of her betrayal pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. I was still processing the shock, but anger was starting to take over. I felt like I had lost control of my own life, and that was something I couldn't accept. I needed to reclaim that control. The next day, I received a call from Tom. He had gathered some information that made my stomach drop. Jessica had been seen with a man named Eric, a colleague from her work, at a bar downtown. They were spotted leaving together late one night. My heart raced as I listened to Tom's report, each detail slicing through what little hope I had left. Armed with this information, I decided it was time to confront Jessica with the undeniable evidence of her infidelity. I scheduled a meeting with her for that evening, my mind racing with thoughts of how this would play out. Would she deny it again? Would she try to twist the narrative to blame me? The uncertainty gnawed at me. When she walked in that evening, I could see the tension in her shoulders. I had made it clear that we needed to talk, and I imagined she had some inkling of what was coming. I sat her down on the couch, and for a moment I hesitated. But then I saw the two phones sitting on the table. One of them was still buzzing with notifications. I took a deep breath and launched in. "Jessica, I know about Eric. I know you've been lying to me," I said, each word feeling like lead in my mouth. The look on her face was a mix of shock and defiance. "What are you talking about?" she shot back, her voice rising. "You're jumping to conclusions." I felt the fire ignite inside me, the anger surging through my veins. "I'm not jumping to conclusions. I have proof that you've been with him. This isn't just some fantasy, Jess. This is real, and you're hurting me in a way I never thought you would." Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw fear flash across her face. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Mike. I was lonely. You were so busy with work, and I needed someone to talk to." That excuse hit me like a freight train. I was working hard to provide for us, and now she was using that against me. It felt like betrayal layered upon betrayal, and I knew I couldn't let her manipulate me any longer. "You can't just blame me for your actions, Jess. You made a choice, and now you have to deal with the consequences. I could feel the walls closing in on us, the weight of the moment suffocating. The reality was unforgiving, and I was left standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take next. I had to make a choice, whether to continue fighting for a marriage built on lies or to start anew on my own terms. The emotional turmoil was unbearable, but I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't let her deceit dictate the course of my life any longer. The confrontation with Jessica left me feeling like I had been wrestling with a hurricane. I couldn't shake off the sense of betrayal that clawed at my insides. My heart was heavy, a constant reminder of the love I once felt for her, now tainted by her lies. I spent the next few days replaying that scene in my head, trying to make sense of it all. Each time I thought about her excuses, I felt a fresh wave of anger. Jessica didn't make it any easier. After the confrontation, she tried to act as if nothing had happened, attempting to slip back into our routine. She would make small talk about dinner plans or her work, but each time she spoke, it felt like she was just pretending. I couldn't bear to look at her. That fake normalcy was suffocating, and I realized I couldn't live like this anymore. I consulted with my lawyer again. I needed clarity on my options. Sarah was supportive, guiding me through the legal process and helping me understand the implications of a potential divorce. "You deserve to be happy, Mike," she said, her voice firm. "It's not worth staying in a marriage where trust is broken beyond repair." Those words resonated with me. I had been so focused on holding on to what we had that I hadn't fully grasped the reality of my situation. Tom, the private investigator, had gathered more intel. He reported that Jessica and Eric had been meeting consistently over several weeks, not just for drinks but also sharing intimate dinners. The final straw was when he learned they had been spotted together at a hotel. I felt like the ground was slipping beneath my feet, and the reality of my wife's betrayal crushed me. That night I went home, consumed by emotions: hurt, anger, betrayal. Jessica was already home, sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone. I could feel the tension in the air as I walked in. She glanced up at me, a mixture of hope and anxiety in her eyes. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, her voice too bright, too forced. "Not great, Jess," I replied. I could see her face tense. "We need to talk again. I found out more about Eric." Her demeanor instantly changed, her body stiffening as she tried to maintain her composure. "Mike, please don't do this. I told you it's not what you think." "No, it's exactly what I think," I snapped, frustration bubbling over. "You've been lying to me. It's not just flirting, it's a full-blown affair. I have evidence of you and him at a hotel." Her face paled, and for a moment I thought I saw genuine fear. I can explain. It was just a mistake. I don't even love him." "Stop lying. If you didn't love him, you wouldn't have done it in the first place," I shot back, my voice breaking. "You've betrayed my trust, Jess. I can't even look at you right now." She tried to reach for me, but I pulled away, the idea of her touch making me feel nauseous. "Mike, please, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to happen. I was lonely and confused," she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I felt a rush of mixed emotions: anger, pity, and a deep sadness. "Lonely? You think that justifies cheating on your husband? You had a choice, Jess, and you chose to be with someone else instead of talking to me." Her shoulders sagged as she sat back on the couch, defeated. "I know I messed up. I just didn't think it would get this far." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. "You need to understand the gravity of what you've done. There's no coming back from this. I need time to think about what I want." We sat in silence, the weight of the moment settling in. I felt like I was holding the shattered pieces of my heart, and I wasn't sure how to put them back together again. I knew I had to decide what to do, but the thought of divorce was daunting. It was a commitment I had never taken lightly, and now it felt like a cruel twist of fate. In the days that followed, I tried to gather my thoughts. I didn't want to drag this out. I owed it to myself to make a decision that honored my feelings rather than catering to hers. I started documenting everything: the late-night work texts, the evidence from Tom, the conversations we had about our marriage. I wanted a clear picture before I made my final decision. The emotional toll was exhausting. I had friends who offered their support, but I felt isolated in my pain. I couldn't bring myself to talk about it too much. It felt too raw, too vulnerable. Instead, I focused on myself. I started jogging again, something I had let slide during our relationship, and it felt good to be active and out in the fresh air, even if just for a little while. One evening, while out for a run, I came across a small park. I sat on a bench, panting from my exertion, and reflected on my situation. I envisioned my life without Jessica and what that might look like. A part of me felt relief at the thought of freedom, yet another part mourned the loss of what we once had. It was a tough pill to swallow, but I knew that I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Finally, I made up my mind. When I returned home, I found Jessica in the kitchen, her head buried in her phone. She looked up, surprise flashing across her face as I entered. "You okay?" she asked, her voice cautious. "I'm okay, but I've made a decision," I said, my heart pounding. "We can't go on like this. I need to be honest with myself and with you." Her expression shifted, the guarded look returning. "What do you mean?" "I'm done trying to fix something that's broken beyond repair. I want a divorce." Those words felt heavy and liberating all at once. I had taken that step, a leap into an uncertain future, but it was a decision I felt was necessary for my own mental health and well-being. Jessica's face went pale and her eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't be serious," she exclaimed. "We can work on this. I love you. I'll do anything." "It's too late for that," I replied firmly, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. "You made your choice and now I'm making mine. I deserve better than this." The emotional fallout was palpable, but I felt a sense of calm wash over me as I walked away from that moment. I was taking control of my life, reclaiming my dignity. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could decide how to move forward. I knew the road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it, one step at a time. The days following my decision to file for divorce were a whirlwind of emotions. I felt an electrifying mix of relief, fear, and uncertainty. I was finally taking control of my life, yet the weight of what was to come loomed heavily over me. I spent hours with my lawyer, Sarah, going over paperwork and understanding my rights. It was daunting, but her guidance made me feel less alone in the process. I had to tell my family next. My parents, who had always been supportive, would be devastated by the news. They loved Jessica and had welcomed her into our family with open arms. I steeled myself for the conversation, rehearsing what I would say in my head. I wasn't looking forward to the disappointment I would see in their eyes, but I knew they deserved to know the truth. When I finally broke the news, it was a gut punch. I sat them down in the living room, my heart racing as I shared everything: the late-night texts, the affair, my decision to leave her. My mom's face fell, and I could see the tears pooling in her eyes. My dad looked furious and heartbroken, struggling to find the right words. "Son, I'm so sorry. We never saw this coming," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. As they processed the news, I felt a mix of guilt and resolve. I had to remind them that this wasn't just about my feelings, it was about safeguarding my mental health. I can't stay in a marriage built on lies. I deserve better than this. My mother reached out and squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with concern. "We'll support you no matter what, Mike. You've always made us proud." After the initial shock wore off, their support became a pillar for me. I spent more time with them, leaning on their love and advice. They encouraged me to focus on myself during this tumultuous time, a sentiment echoed by my friends. I had friends who offered to help distract me from the pain, inviting me out for beers or to watch sports games. I appreciated their efforts, but I often felt detached. Meanwhile, my interactions with Jessica became increasingly strained. She was still living in the house, and every exchange felt heavy with unresolved tension. One evening, I returned home to find her sitting on the couch, a defeated expression plastered on her face. "Mike, can we please talk?" she asked, her voice soft, the usual defensive tone replaced by something that resembled vulnerability. I hesitated, unsure of what to expect. "What do you want to talk about?" I replied, crossing my arms defensively. "I know I messed up. I really want to fix this." Her eyes were pleading, and for a moment I felt a flicker of the affection I had once held for her, but it quickly faded. "You can't fix this, Jess. You made your choice, and I'm not just going to pretend like everything is okay. I've been talking to a therapist. she continued, her voice trembling. "I want to understand why I did what I did. I've realized how much I've hurt you, and I'm truly sorry. Can't we at least try to work through this together?" The sincerity in her voice was disarming, but I knew better than to get sucked back into her pleas. "You can't just erase what you did with apologies. Trust has been shattered, and I can't rebuild that foundation with you after everything." She looked away, tears welling in her eyes. "I hate seeing us like this. I miss the way we used to be." I felt a pang of sorrow for what we had lost, but I was determined to stick to my decision. "I miss it too, but I can't go back to being that person because you've changed everything." As the weeks rolled on, I pressed forward with the divorce proceedings. I found a new apartment that felt like a breath of fresh air. It was smaller than our house, but it was mine, my sanctuary. I spent weekends painting the walls, buying new furniture, and trying to create a space that felt like home again. With each stroke of paint, I felt lighter, as if I was reclaiming a part of myself I had lost. During this time, I also began to explore new hobbies. I had always wanted to learn how to cook, so I signed up for a cooking class. It felt liberating to be doing something for myself, and the camaraderie among the other participants was refreshing. We laughed while chopping vegetables, and I found joy in creating delicious meals that I could share with friends. But even as I worked on rebuilding my life, memories of Jessica would flood back. Some days, I would catch myself reminiscing about our early years together, the adventures we had, the laughter we shared. Those moments felt like a different lifetime, and the ache of loss settled deep in my chest. I mourned not only the marriage but the friendship we had once cherished. One night, I attended a friend's birthday party, determined to enjoy myself despite everything weighing on my mind. I mingled, laughed, and even danced, trying to forget about my troubles, at least for a little while. As the evening wore on, I found myself in a conversation with a woman named Rachel. She was friendly, with a warm smile and an infectious laugh. We hit it off, sharing stories about our lives, and I found myself genuinely enjoying her company. As the night progressed, something unexpected happened. For the first time since everything began, I felt a spark. Rachel was kind and engaging, and I found myself drawn to her. We exchanged numbers, and as I left the party, I felt a flicker of excitement in my heart. Could this be a chance for something new? The thought of dating felt daunting, but I had been through so much. I didn't want to close myself off to the possibility of happiness. That night, as I lay in my new bed, I made a silent promise to myself. I would allow myself to heal, to grow, and to eventually love again. But first, I had to navigate the messy waters of divorce. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to come out stronger on the other side. I had learned so much about myself during this process, and the lessons were invaluable. Trust and honesty were paramount, and I would never settle for less again. As I moved forward into this new chapter of my life, I felt a sense of empowerment. I was no longer just the man who had been betrayed. I was a survivor, ready to forge my own path. The future felt uncertain, but it was mine to shape, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. Jessica and I had both hired lawyers, and though I was initially worried about how contentious it might become, I was relieved to find that Jessica had chosen to approach it with a level of cooperation. Perhaps, deep down, she knew there was no way to salvage our marriage. As the negotiations unfolded, we sat across from each other in the lawyer's office, the tension palpable. There was a sense of finality in the air, and I could see that Jessica was struggling with the reality of what was happening. I sat there, my heart heavy but resolute. I had to remind myself that this was the best decision for both of us. "Mike, I really didn't mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you," Jessica said, her voice soft as she looked down at the table. I held my composure. "I know you didn't mean to hurt me, Jess, but your actions speak louder than words. It's not something I can just forget." The lawyers discussed assets, debts, and some of the finer details of our life together. I felt strangely detached through the process, like I was watching a movie rather than living it. This was a part of my life I never thought I would have to navigate. The financial side was daunting, but Sarah assured me that I was making sound decisions for my future. As we finalized the paperwork, I noticed Jessica's hands trembling. I had seen that look before, the fear of losing control. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of empathy. "Jess, once this is done, I hope you find happiness." "I truly do," I said, surprising myself with my own words. "Thank you, Mike," she replied, a tear shimmering in her eye. "I hope you find happiness, too." With those words, the finality of our marriage hit me hard. It felt surreal to sign the papers, knowing that this was the end of a chapter I had once cherished so deeply. I left the office feeling a mix of relief and sadness. It was over, and now came the hard part, moving on. The first few weeks post-divorce were a rough transition. I found myself grappling with newfound solitude, and the silence in my apartment was deafening. I filled my time with work and hobbies, but there were moments when the weight of loneliness felt overwhelming. I missed the companionship, the inside jokes, and even the quiet moments we shared before everything imploded. In an effort to pull myself out of the funk, I decided to reach out to Rachel. Our initial conversation at the birthday party had left a lasting impression on me, and I felt ready to explore what a friendship with her could become. We met for coffee, and as we talked, I found myself laughing and enjoying the moment, the warmth of her smile easing some of the heaviness in my heart. Rachel was easy to talk to. She had an infectious enthusiasm for life, and I found myself sharing more than I had anticipated. "I can't believe you're a cooking enthusiast now. I remember when you used to burn toast," she teased, and I laughed, feeling a connection I hadn't felt in a long time. As our coffee date turned into lunch, Rachel shared snippets of her life, her dreams, her career, and even her challenges. I felt drawn to her authenticity and the way she listened. For the first time in what felt like ages, I felt a sense of hope blossoming inside me. Maybe this was the start of something new, something positive. We began to see each other more regularly, our outings becoming a welcome escape from the remnants of my past. I found myself smiling more, laughing more, and even contemplating the idea of dating again. Rachel was gentle and kind, and her presence helped me navigate the emotional aftermath of the divorce. I was still cautious, but I allowed myself to consider a future beyond the hurt. One evening, we went to a local carnival. The vibrant lights and laughter filled the air, and I felt a spark of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. We wandered through booths, played games, and even shared a cotton candy that made us both giggle like kids. As we stood in line for the Ferris wheel, Rachel reached for my hand, intertwining her fingers with mine. The simple touch ignited a warmth in my chest. As the wheel began to rise, I held my breath for a moment, staring out at the view. The city sparkled beneath us, and I felt a wave of hope surge through me. I turned to Rachel, who was beaming at the view, and in that moment I realized that I was ready to let go of the past. I could see a new beginning on the horizon, and it was beautiful. When we reached the top, the world seemed to pause. I looked into Rachel's eyes, and it felt like we were suspended in time. "You know, I never thought I could feel this way again after everything," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Rachel smiled softly, her expression sincere. "You deserve to be happy, Mike. We all do. Life is too short to hold on to the past." Those words resonated with me. They were a reminder that I had the power to choose happiness, even after heartbreak. I leaned in closer, and for the first time since the divorce, I kissed someone new. It was tentative, yet filled with promise. In that moment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a release of fear, hurt, and the burden of my past. As the Ferris wheel began its descent, I held Rachel's hand tightly, feeling a newfound sense of freedom. I had begun to embrace the idea of moving on. I knew that healing was a journey, one that would take time, but with each passing day, I felt stronger and more in control of my life. I began to look forward to the future, and for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt genuine excitement. I was ready to continue building my new life, one step at a time, with a glimmer of hope shining brightly ahead. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself embracing my new life with a renewed sense of purpose. My relationship with Rachel blossomed into something deeper. We shared laughter, hopes, and dreams, and each moment spent together felt like a reminder of how beautiful life could be when you weren't weighed down by past mistakes. I continued to focus on healing, not just from the scars of my marriage, but from the emotional turmoil that had plagued me for so long. I started attending a support group for men who had been through similar situations. Sharing my experiences with others who understood the pain of betrayal was cathartic. It helped me process my feelings and offered me insights into my own journey. I learned that healing wasn't linear, that it was okay to have good days and bad days. This realization brought me a sense of peace. I also threw myself into my work with a new enthusiasm. I had been hesitant to focus on my career during the chaos of my marriage, but now I found myself motivated to push my boundaries. I took on new projects, something that felt invigorating and refreshing. The importance of personal fulfillment became clear to me. Focusing on my own aspirations was crucial to my growth. One evening, Rachel and I decided to have a quiet dinner at a cozy little restaurant downtown. As we sat across from each other, the ambience warm and inviting, I felt at ease. We shared stories of our childhoods, our favorite travel destinations, and the dreams we held for the future. Rachel talked about wanting to start her own bakery, something that sparked excitement in her eyes. I was captivated by her passion and ambition. "Mike, you've really inspired me," she said, her voice soft yet firm. "Seeing you navigate everything with such strength has made me realize how important it is to go after what I want." Her words hit home. I had spent so long feeling defeated, but here I was, sitting across from a woman who encouraged me to see the potential in myself. It felt incredible to know that I was having a positive impact on someone else's life, just as she was on mine. As the night wore on, I excused myself to go to the restroom, but as I stood up, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I had been given a second chance, not just at love but at life. I realized I could look forward with hope, leaving the bitterness of my past behind. When I returned to our table, Rachel was looking at me with a mixture of curiosity and affection. I took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of the moment. "Rachel," I began, "I know things have moved quickly between us, but I can't help but feel that this is something special. You've brought so much joy back into my life, and I want to continue exploring what we have together." Her eyes sparkled and she smiled widely. "I feel the same way, Mike. You've shown me what it means to be open and vulnerable again. I'm excited about the future." As we talked, the conversation turned serious. I couldn't ignore the lessons I had learned throughout my journey. "I need to tell you something," I said, feeling the urge to be transparent. "I've been through a lot, and while I'm ready to embrace a future together, I want you to know that I'm still healing. I want to make sure that we build a strong foundation based on honesty and communication." Rachel nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I appreciate your honesty. We all have our baggage, and it's important to acknowledge it. I want us to support each other as we grow." That understanding was everything I had hoped for. We finished our dinner with a renewed sense of commitment and excitement, ready to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead together. As the days turned into weeks, we continued to build our relationship. I introduced Rachel to my parents, who were thrilled to see me happy again. They loved her and embraced her into the family with open arms. One sunny afternoon, we went hiking at a nearby trail. The scenery was breathtaking, and as we reached the summit, I turned to Rachel, overwhelmed by gratitude. "Thank you for being a part of my life," I said, my voice filled with sincerity. "I never thought I could feel this way again after everything I went through. You've truly helped me heal." She took my hand, squeezing it gently. "And thank you for allowing me to be there for you. It's refreshing to be with someone who understands the importance of growth and healing." As we stood there, looking out over the valley, I realized that I had finally turned a corner. I could appreciate my past, learn from it, but I no longer needed to be defined by it. I had found love again, but more importantly, I had found myself. In that moment, I made a promise to myself that I would always prioritize honesty, communication, and self-love. I wouldn't allow past mistakes to dictate my future. I had learned the importance of trusting myself and honoring my worth. As we made our way back down the trail, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Life was unpredictable, but I was ready to embrace it. I had emerged from the storm stronger and wiser, looking forward to all that lay ahead. The journey was far from over, but it was mine to shape, and I was ready for every moment.